I recently have read a book named The Power of Geographies by T. Marshall. And, people like myself are just quite bad in geographies, right? I only know where I'm from, which is Malaysia. And then currently I'm in the UK, and that's it. I've not even actually visited any of the countries in European Union yet, but I will do that. But anyway, the context of this video is actually I picked up books that are related to geographies. Wow, I never thought that reading about geography is so interesting that I just can't put that in words. It just blows my mind that there's a conflict in the world been happening since early human history. And in this context of this book, it's basically go through the history of it and letting us know why it's happening, what has happened, and how it's actually happened. So in this video, this is my second video about the book I picked every month, and this is the second series of it. Yeah, I just want to talk about this book, this video, which is strange really, because I think I wouldn't want to actually deep dive about this book to talk about it, because I'd want to make my channel become too political. But obviously I think the format of this video, I will split into probably 10 sections of it, and it's a lot, but each section is just about 1 minute, briefly talks about each country's what interesting about it and what I thought about it. And lastly, I just want to share some of the conclusion that I think why reading this book actually widened my horizons and how I actually view the world about it. So let's go. So the first one is actually Australia, and Australia is such an interesting country because I'm actually from Borneo, North Borneo, and so basically going to Australia, not really the Melbourne side of it, but actually the Perth side of it, it's only taken me 2.5 hours. The book basically describes Australia as one of the largest landmass in the world, but at the same time 80% of it is not inhabitable, and most of the towns actually surrounding the coast side of it a bit instead of actually in the middle. And it also talks about how it's actually a middle power in the Pacifics, navigating a relationship with both Western allies and rising China. I think this book also talks about a lot of things like how Australia comes into as a country from prisoners from the UK into Australia's, and yeah, I think there's a lot more to talk about it. That's all I can cover in the videos before actually spending probably lots and lots of minutes actually talks about it. And I also think that it's quite interesting that it covers some of the history in Australia that people never actually talks about. I'll kind of lift that to you to actually read about it. So the second one is actually Iran, and Iran is also quite interesting to me because it's actually control over the Strait of Hormuz, if I pronounce that properly. According to the book, is also true as significant portions of world oil supply as well, which basically people would pass the oil around it, which I also quite surprised by that, because I would thought oil country would be as rich as Saudi Arabia. I think the book also describes some of the history around it, how they actually get across from religions and things like that, which I'm not going to touch on in this video because again, I want to put my videos into quite politicals. It's also very interesting that it talks about how mountainous the terrains kind of provide Iran both protection and isolation as well, which I think is also influencing its regional ambitions and standoff with Western powers, which is interesting. But now in today's news, it's still kind of having some clashes with US. That's it really. I don't want to kind of jump into too much of the politicals. The next bit it talks about is Saudi Arabia, which is the third chapter of the book. We all know that Saudi Arabia is vast landscapes, and its roles again is a world oil powerhouse. Depends on oil. Obviously recently they have diversified interests or the investment in different things, and it also at the same time, not just because they have oil, they also have a lot of challenges and opportunities presented by its geographic locations, and also the new Saudi's prince as well, which I can talk about and what's happened in Turkey's consulate and things like that, which you guys really knew about it for sure. I think it also covers quite a lot of interesting facts, how Saudis came to become Saudi Arabias. These histories is very interesting because we never actually learned that in schools, but reading this now just give us a perspective that how it's actually affected. So the fourth one will be the most interesting one, which is the UK. Obviously the UK talks about some of the Battle of Hastings, how Scotland and England fight each others, and then after that they merged together in 1700s around there, which the book mentioned about it, and then after that they grew empires, and then how they actually lost the power. So yeah, really it's for the UK. I just felt like I'm from Malaysia and we used to be a colony of the UK. We have learned the history of UK quite significant chunks of it. So reading from this book isn't quite special for me anymore. But then it's still good to know about some of the geographical stuff. And, UK isn't how we thought. It's how beautiful it is from outside, right? Like, first world countries, and the UK also suffered a little bit after the war. The country is ridden by debt. And hopefully now it's slowly recovering, even though we kind of have the Brexit happens and then we lost the access to the single market. The UK is doing great, doing okay at the moment. Not too great, but at least surviving, I think. And so the next one is the Greece, and I would like to talk about that together with Turkey. So Greece and Turkey has been, historically geopolitical tensions between both of them since very early of the human history, apparently. And I think it's also because underscored by the strategic position at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, which I have read the script, by the way, and highlight the significance of the Aegean Sea, if I pronounce it properly. Overall, is that it's interesting to kind of finally get to know that Greece and Turkey has such an interesting history about it, especially Turkey's with the Ottoman empires, and then also kind of how Greece rising from their Athens kind of Greek gods kind of historical stuff. The next one would be Sahel. Sahel is Sahel, if I pronounce it properly, is the geography and climate challenges facing by the region and stretching across Africa. I think they also have issues with population growth and the resource limitations of it, which I think also kind of have challenges around them and pressure. So basically, majority of the book actually kind of focusing in the Middle East countries, and it talks about their difficulties as well. One of the chapters actually talks about utopias, where I think utopia is actually quite interesting as well, because it also made me highlight about their dam, which actually they've been trying very hard to build it, because it's kind of like the future of them, able to generate hydrous electrical powers. It's probably one of the most important thing that their country was focused on. It's also kind of because of that is also affecting the relations between Egypt and Sudan as well. I really wish that I can kind of keep going and talk about it, but unfortunately, generally, it's just too long to cover it. And the next one is Spain. The book also covers about Spain, although it's not like drastically in depth about Spain. It just basically talks about, again, its histories, how Spain was used to be superpowers back in 18th century before the British Empire, I think. But I think the last bit I'm talking about is, so the Spain is actually one of the strong contender back in 18th centuries, even with the rising of the British Empire. They're also militarily strong as well until more recently. There are a few history stuff about Spain. I could just read from the book and tell you about it, but I think it's best for you to actually read about it. It's probably quite interesting that actually Europe region isn't quite advanced that I used to think. It's actually not too far ago they achieved democracy, I think. This is a very interesting fact. So the last thing is about space, and I think space is also, I think, interesting one, because everyone is trying to contest that. I think it actually starts from the Cold War, when Russia and the US trying to compete with each other, which one or who is actually will go to the moon first. And actually US just won the war, and then since then they haven't actually gone to the moon yet, but obviously in the future they will be actually having restarts that kind of moon expedition again. And since then I think China is coming up as strong contenders again, because China's and Russia's not good relation with US, obviously everyone knows about it, and they have their own way to actually launch their kind of to the space events, the space program, which is actually different than the G7 countries or the Western country, I would say. And so again, it's ultimately it's war again, right? It's about who will be the first one to colonize probably moon, or having the technologies to actually gather, get the resources from the moon, or any others. There's higher chance that Elon Musk's SpaceX will actually wins the war. Probably they already won it, because I think reusable rockets, it's such a big thing in space. And I do remember they said that each rocket, it's about 6 million, and every time it launched the sky, you lost 6 million, and SpaceX actually reversed that, I think. And the conclusion of this book is, if you read in depth of it, the human is constantly in conflict. Reading this book, I just felt like humans actually never they were in peace to begin with. When I say in peace, you know, the surrounding, the country surrounding it is actually in peace, while the one that in the middle still having arguments, conflicts, war. So I definitely feel fortunate to be born in a country in Malaysia that is free from this kind of conflict, even though we still have racism issues. But also very fortunate that my second home, which is the UK, also don't have this kind of internal conflict. I think ultimately it's a good book to read. It's a bit heavy book as well, because you felt like very stressed to read about all this war. Apology of the videos, it's a bit crappy made, but if you have any comments about this book, leave your, just leave your comments down below. Let's discuss about it. Happy to sync up with you to share some of the opinions around it. And yeah, this is the conclusion of my second book of the month. As I mentioned that I have decided to read a book at least for a month and make videos about it. The videos will be crappy, but I promise that the book I picked up will be quite interesting. So that's the end of the videos. If you like the videos, give me a like and subscribe to me if you haven't. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you for tuning. Peace.